Chandler Van De Water here with another Method and Craft how-to video. I'm just going to show you guys how to make some patterns in Illustrator. Alright, so I've got this shape right here that I created, and what we're going to do is create a pattern out of this shape repeating. Then I will show you guys a more complicated pattern and what you can do with it. So this, I'm going to try and be as quick as I can, but this can get complicated and it might be a lengthy process until you get the hang of it. So just bear with me because I don't know what the heck I'm doing. Alright, so first things first, you're going to turn on your grid. You can do Command apostrophe or under your view menu down here. Also turn on Snap to Grid to get started, alright? So what I'm going to do is duplicate this shape over here, and we're going to just size it down a bit, alright? So I'm going to get it down here to be, let's say this big. This looks decent, alright? So next thing, oh yeah, before I get started any further, make sure you go into your preferences and under guides and grid, set your grid line every 1 inch. Subdivisions, whatever you want, I choose 8. But what this will do is help us make our pattern. Whatever you set for your grid line, make sure you're building your pattern within that size. It'll just make everything easier. So yeah. Alright, next thing I want to do is because what I want to do, let's think about this. If this is the actual area that I want to build my pattern within, what I need to do is get my little shape here in that corner perfectly. Obviously, because I'm on Snap to Grid, it's not going to line up right, but luckily we have plenty of alignment tools and we can use these to help us get everything situated. So now my little man is right here in the corner and we can begin building the pattern. Alright, so what I'm going to do is select this guy, and Command Shift M will bring up my move dialog box. Because my pattern is 1 inch, I want to do everything or most everything in increments of 1. You'll understand why in a little bit. But I have preview turned on, so I know that I'm moving it over 1 inch right here. This is good. Let's copy it and make that happen. Alright, these are the top left and top right corners of my pattern. I need to get these two down here and down here as well, okay? So I'm going to highlight both of these, bring up my move dialog box again, and we're going to just do 1 inch vertically, and we're going to copy that. So now I've got these perfectly in the corners. I advise against trying to eyeball this. You're going to have a screwy pattern if you don't get the numbers exactly right. So it's best to do it this way. Alright, so this is kind of a boring pattern because it's just going to look like this everywhere. So I kind of want to, let's say I want to fill this in a little bit more. Let's move these again, except let's move them halfway. Let's move them a ½ inch down. Now I've got some extra going on here on the sides. If I, this piece right here is, this half right here will be replicated right here. So we're good, as in this is seamless going across, right? And we're good in the corners as well. No matter which way we do it, this pattern is going to work. But it's empty here in the middle, so let's try and fill something in. Instead of just, moving these three over to the middle, I think a good idea might be, let's move this guy halfway so we know he's in the middle, but let's also move him a quarter of the way down. So instead of having 3, we'll only have 2, and they'll be right about here in between these two, and right about here in between these two. So what I'm going to do is in my vertical, I'm going to do 0.25, and I'm going to copy him. Alright, so that one's looking good. We can move him again. Vertically, we'll move him a ½ inch because that will move him around 70.75 inches from the top total. Alright, so this pattern it's looking alright. You could do different things. You could try and mess around with the angles that these things are sitting at, but for simplicity's sake, we're just going to keep it like this, alright? So what I'm going to do is group these together, and here comes the tricky part. This can be This can be frustrating if you don't know what you're doing with Pathfinder. This is probably not the best introduction to Pathfinder tool, but I just start messing around with it and start learning it. It's really powerful, and you can do some really cool stuff with it. You just got to kind of know what you're doing. So don't be afraid of it. Just start to play with it, and you can figure it out. That's what she said. Sorry. All right. Let's draw a square right here again. Snap to grid is allowing me to draw a perfect square. And for, to be able to segregate, I'm going to change the color of this so we know what we're selecting. Alright, so what I want to do is make sure that I've got all of my stuff selected here. And normally what you would think is that you could just do minus front and it would knock out, this red shape and leave me with the stuff inside this square. But as you can see, that doesn't quite do what we want. I've found that when you're working with groups or compound shapes, things can get kind of tricky. So what we're actually going to do is the exclude. If I do this, you'll see what happens. It's going to create not quite what I want, but somewhere along the lines. Okay. So what I can do now is I can select all these outliers outside of my 1 inch square, and I've started to get the beginnings of a pattern. Now this could be a pattern right here and we could be good to go, but I don't like it, and it's not really what I want. Now I'm gonna save it because I'll show you what differences you can do with it. But I'll go ahead and change the color here, and then what I'm gonna do is duplicate it over. Whoops! I'm gonna duplicate it over here. Now, let's draw another square because we want to get the inverse of this. We want to have our shapes be not knocked out of the pattern. We want them to be the pattern. So what I'm going to do is select both of these again, and this time I'm going to do intersect. Whoops, I'm going to do exclude again, sorry. So look, now I've got my shapes are my pattern, and I can change the color here. So now I've got two different patterns, one where the shapes are the pattern and one where the shapes are knocked out of the pattern. You could do some cool stuff if you wanted to by bringing this over here and changing the color. I don't want to do that right now for simplicity's sake. I guess I'm doing a lot of stuff for simplicity's sake. But basically what you want to do, we know that this is 1 inch by 1 inch, and what we're going to do is just drag this up here to our swatches palette and drop it in. I'll go ahead and drop this one up here too so you can see the difference. But now any shape that I select, and then as my fill, you could do it for your stroke fill, but that's going to look weird unless you were planning on it. When I fill it in, check out what happens. I've got my shape. Got my shapes duplicating perfectly within this pattern. I'm going to turn off my grid so you can see better. Duplicating perfectly if I do the inverse, like so. So this is kind of fun. This is obviously very simple and doesn't look amazing. Looks kind of like a wafer, I guess, a little bit right now. But you can do some cool things with it. So if this isn't quite where you want it to be, you can hold down your tilde key, and with the direct select tool, hold down your tilde key, and you can move the pattern around. You can move it with your arrow keys as well, and you can also scale it. So what you want to do is come down here to the transform, and let's say we want to make these, we want the pattern to actually be a little bit bigger. All you have to do is make sure that the pattern is the only one that's selected. Otherwise, if objects is selected or strokes and effects are selected, you're going to start messing with this actual big shape. So turn that off, and let's just say I want to scale it to 200%, and there you go. Obviously that still looks kind of weird. Whatever. I'm just showing you guys how to do it. So you can play with it however you like and get things set up however you like. Obviously this is a really simple example, but when you feel a little bit more daring, what you can do is start getting into stuff like this. So I've created these. These were for a different project, but I brought them in here so you guys could get an understanding. We're going to just take a look real quick at this right here. So it may look kind of jumbled and non-repeating, but remember that it's just this 1 inch square right here. So I took each one of these and, you know, say this one right here. This sunshine right here is the exact same as is this one, as is this one. So all I did was I positioned it in the corner how I wanted it, and then I moved it an inch and copied it likewise and likewise. I did that for anything where it was duplicating over. This is a good example. Look, this one right here is duplicated right here and right here, but it's not duplicated up here because it's falling outside of the square at that point. If I were to duplicate it up here, it would be, you know, like this right here, which is not inside of the square. You know, the ones that fall completely within the square are not duplicated at all, such as this one right here, or this one right here, or that one. But once I got everything situated like I wanted to, I followed the same method that I did before. I converted these to outlines, and then draw your square and do your Pathfinder exclude, and then draw another square and do exclude again to get something like this. So you know, these can get as complicated as you want, and this looks a little bit more random than the other pattern that we were working on up here, but that's okay. So I'll show you what these look like on here. I think that I have it saved right here. Yes, okay. So this is the sunshine pattern here. So these are actually knocked out of the shape. If you want to see, I can draw a I can draw this behind. Move this to the bottom. Whoops. So you can see the red is actually coming through right there. So that can be really cool for some different effects, whatever you want. And again, you know, you can transform these however you like. What am I doing here? Scale these. Yep. So this is at 200%. If I turn off objects, this is at 200%. Let's do it 250. How's that look? Yeah. Okay. And then you can also, you know, whatever you want. If you want to rotate it, this doesn't look quite right. I'm going to rotate this by 50 degrees. Sure. There you go. And, you know, whoops. If you hold down tilde, you can move it around. This is with the direct select tool again. It won't move your shape. One thing is that if you're at 100% or even further back, well, it's not doing it right now, but you might start to notice like some lines in between. Don't be worried about that. If you've built it the right way, those lines are just Illustrator rendering the pattern. When it prints or whatever you're going to use it for, if you export it, those aren't going to show up. I hope this helps get you guys started with making some of your own patterns instead of, you know, just ripping stuff off the internet, freebie stuff everywhere. You can do some really cool stuff. These are just some small examples. I'd encourage you guys to just get to know your Pathfinder tool, and you know, snap to grid is your friend, as is the move tool whenever you're doing stuff with patterns. And if you've got any questions, hit me up on Twitter or comment on something on Dribble or whatever. I'm all ears, want to learn from you guys. If you've got any better methods of doing stuff like this, shoot, send it my way because I'm all ears. Peace!